All right, guys, welcome to the Friday directions video and the Friday notes. Easy day today. We're just going to go through a few slideshows on basically how Caesar, we're going to focus on that man today, Julius Caesar, how he goes from being nobody to being one of the world's most famous leaders of all time. So we're kind of going to look at some more detail. You guys read kind of the summary of it yesterday in the reading, but we're going to kind of tell the longer version of the story today. So we have the learning targets here, what we're going to be kind of focusing on, and a lot of it's going to be part A for today. So let's just dive into it. Here is the vocab for today, the ones that will be on the quiz for sure. Triumvirate, 100%. Exeltium, 100%. I think that'll be for sure the test questions out of these little vocabs here. Probably going to add more, but for now, we're going to focus on those two. So when Triumvirate comes up today, ears should light up. Same thing for the, Exeltium. This is a city or a battle. Okay, so we'll kind of see what Caesar does to those people. All right, so let's just dive into it here. Julius Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus rule Rome for many years. So we have a guy named Pompey who's kind of the military genius, right? And then this guy named Crassus who's the richest man in all of Rome. Known to, well, legend is he owned 60% of Rome at one time. And remember yesterday we kind of talked about how he became so rich. He made private fire departments. He'd light your house on fire, then ask you if you want him to put it out, and then he'll charge you for it. All right, that's kind of how he started. All right, now the third new member of this is Caesar. Okay, he's from a wealthy family. There is some stories out there that he could have fought Spartacus, that gladiator slave that escaped and ran rampant in the countryside of Rome, kind of became the Robin Hood of his time. Julius Caesar may have fought against him. There's sources for both sides. So for us here in our class, we're just going to say maybe. All right. So let's kind of get to know this man, Julius Caesar. So one of the first stories that comes out is when he's a kid. Again, he's from a wealthy family. Okay, we got to keep that in mind here. So he's on his way to vacation in this place called Rhodes. You guys can kind of look that up if you want, if you're interested. So he's on vacation. His ship ends up getting captured by pirates, and the pirates figure out who he is, and what they're going to do is they're going to basically ransom him. Okay, they're going to send a note or send a message to his family saying, hey, give us this much money if you ever want to see your kid again. So while that's going on, Caesar, it's not like today's time where they can just, call him up or something, so it takes time to get these messages back and forth. So Caesar ends up spending a bunch of time with these pirates, and while he's there, he kind of makes friends with them, but he kind of makes jokes all the time. Like, Caesar would say something like this. He'd be like, man, like, I cannot wait for my family to pay this ransom. I'm going to go home, grab an army, and I'm going to come back and kill every single one of you. And then the pirates think he's like joking, but Caesar's being 100% honest. All right, so eventually the ransom gets paid. Caesar returns home and does exactly what he says. Grabs an army, goes back to kind of the pirates' like hideout, I guess, and murders every single one. All right, so that just kind of gives you an idea of who Caesar is. And this is him at a young age. So kind of that fire is definitely inside of him. All right. So Caesar's rise to power, his reputation really gets started when he gets sent to Spain. The thing with Rome, guys, is you have to serve in the army if you want to become consul or if you want to become president, right? So while in Spain, he's leading his forces, and that's kind of where he makes his bones, or where he gets his name out there. So he crushes rebellion in Spain. With that, he kind of is able to kind of raid the barbarian countryside, I guess, all their kind of treasures. So when he brings that back, it makes Rome wealthy. And if you're making Rome wealthy, people are going to like you. So he's recalled to the Senate after his stint in Spain. He's going to make political alliances with the two consuls at the time who actually hate each other. All right, so the two consuls are actually Pompey and Crassus at the moment. And they do not like each other. All right, so Caesar's going to come in and kind of be like the middleman. Hopefully smooths things out. So we have the first triumvirate. All right, this is what it's called. So we're going to have the three-headed monster that's going to run Rome. Okay, so we're going to have Julius Caesar. We're going to have Marcus Crassus. I'm just going to call him Crassus. And Gaius Magnus Pompey. Okay, it's not Pompey, it's literally Pompey. All right, so we have Crassus and Pompey. Um, and again, these are going to be the three guys. Crassus and Pompey actually are going to support Julius Caesar, so Julius Caesar is able to win the consulship, or Julius Caesar is going to be able to win the presidency thanks to these two guys. Now, Julius Caesar at this moment is kind of an older man now, and he actually has a daughter, and I think he marries his daughter off to Pompey to really make sure that that bond is solidified, right? So we got the three-headed monster, the first triumvirate. Know these, write this down, star them, because there's going to be a second triumvirate that's going to be with different people. So you want to know these guys. All right, so Caesar the threat now. So his term as consul was over, so Caesar served his 1 year as consul, just is, it's the norm at the time, especially with the Roman Republic. Caesar had been playing both sides, playing both Crassus and Pompey. And now he has become politically powerful enough to be sent away. Basically, he's becoming too powerful, and Pompey and Crassus know this, and we got to get rid of him. All right, so as a result, after his consulship is done, they decide to appoint him to be the governor of southern Gaul. And Gaul is just France for the most part, okay? So basically they're like, yep, we're going to send this guy away, and let's send him far away. All right, so he gets this wonderful promotion, or I guess not promotion, but this wonderful job as the governor of Gaul, even though it's kind of a ploy to get him out of town. So he left in 58 BCE, and for the next 8 years, basically just ran rampant in Europe, all right, mainly Central Europe. So let's kind of look here at this little stat line there. So Caesar in Gaul. So there's 12 million people living in the territory known as Gaul, or France, all right? Well, Caesar, in that 8-year span, he kills over 1 million of them and enslaves 2 million more, or 1 million more. All right, so he's basically made his presence known in Gaul, and you can kind of see the campaigns are endless and it's all over the place. So you guys can kind of see. Here's kind of where Rome is, and you can see he just kind of goes all over the map there. All right, let's continue on. A couple stories that come out of this Gaul campaign. The first one is called the Battle of Alesia, and this one is basically showing his genius, his military genius. If we look at the picture here, we have the city, we have one wall, and we have two walls, okay? So what happens is the city of Alesia is not going to give in to Caesar. So what they do is they fortify their city with a wall, and Caesar and his men are like, okay, that's fine. We will literally sit here and we will wait for you. You will starve before we come in. Well, while Caesar and his men are sitting outside here just waiting for the city to give in, word gets out, and another group of, we'll call them like Gallic tribes, they're going to come and they're going to try to attack Caesar from like the backside, right? They're going to come over these hills here and hopefully pinch Caesar and his men between the city and them. Well, Caesar being Caesar and a military genius, what he does is he builds a series of walls to keep the enemy from behind attacking him. So we just have all these walls, and there's different groups in between each one. Eventually, eventually what happens is the Caesar and his men are able to defeat the outside people first, and then he's able to go in and attack the city and conquer them there. So as you can see, King converted 80,000 men and some 60,000 women, but that's just showing him kind of his military smartness, all right, his genius, or his innovation. All right, so the Battle of Alesia is something that's important, just kind of showcasing his brilliance. The next one we're going to look at is kind of more showing his brutality, and this is Exeltium. Okay, the city of Exeltium. This is one of the key words today. You will 100% see this in the test, this story. So the last city in Gaul that tried to resist him is this city, Exeltium. All right, so Caesar had to put down the rebellion, and then he decides to make an example of the people. Now here's the test question, okay? This is what Caesar does. So you get in line, and he wants to prove a point. He wants to send a message. So what he does is you put your hand out on the chopping block, and they just chop your hands off. So now you have no hands. All right, and again, this is a day and age where 99.9% of people are farmers. Well, you can't farm without hands. So what he does is he chops off everyone's hands in the entire city. And then he takes those people and he just basically delivers them to different cities. So he'll just drop them off here or there inside Gaul, sends them out. Kind of like, hey, It's more of like a message. Like, hey, do you see what happens when you mess with Caesar? Um, this is what happens to you. And because of that, the message was definitely received because it does say this is the last city in Gaul to resist them. Everybody else just gives in after they see what happens to Exultium. All right? So Caesar, he's smart, but he also has that fire inside of him to be brutal when he needs to be. All right, so let's kind of catch up on the other two here. So while Caesar was in Gaul, his good friend Crassus went to Syria to fight, and he ends up losing a battle. He ends up getting beheaded in this battle. So now his one of the triumvirate is dead. Crassus is done. So now it's just Pompey and Caesar. All right. So the Romans then responded by electing one consul for Rome, Pompey. So Pompey's the only guy in charge now in Rome. So his only threat to his power is now Caesar. That's going to play a role. To make matters worse, Caesar's daughter, who was married to Pompey, kind of solidifying that bond, she died and Pompey remarried. So now there's no family ties kind of keeping Pompey and Caesar together. All right, so long story short now, Caesar's in Gaul, Pompey's running Rome, and Caesar's definitely on the outside looking in. All right, he's kind of lost his alliance system. All right, so what ends up happening here is that Pompey sends a message to Caesar saying, hey, nice job out there in Gaul, time for you to come back and return to Rome. But do not bring your army with you. Come unarmed. All right, so Caesar, obviously realizing that if he does come unarmed, he's probably going to be killed. But the other side is, does he return with his legions, his army? But if he does that, it would trigger a civil war. So he has a choice to make. And it's not really that hard of a choice. Caesar ends up deciding to bring his soldiers with him. And we're going to have the civil war for the first dictator in Rome. Pompey versus J.C. Julius Caesar. All right. Now, there's a famous saying. This is the last thing I'm going to talk about for part one here. There's a famous saying. It's called the die is cast. It's kind of like what's done is done, or like, and it's when Caesar crosses the Rubicon River. The Rubicon River is like the most southern part of Caesar's Gallic territory. So once he crosses the river, it is a definite sign of civil war, and it's going to 100% spark the war. So once he crosses it, it's kind of like it's been done, basically. Like the war is on. It's only a matter of time. All right. So by crossing the Rubicon, Caesar's declaring war on the Republic. Pompey and most of the Senate, including these two guys that we'll see later, Brutus and Cassius, you may recognize their name from like the Shakespeare play. They flee to Greece to basically raise an army to fight Julius Caesar. Pompey is easily able to raise an army because most of Greece is controlled by his former soldiers. And like we talked about in a previous lecture, the soldiers are not really loyal to Rome. They're loyal to their generals because a lot of times these generals are paying the soldiers out of their own pocket. So it's kind of like you have your own personal army. So Pompey is easily able to go to Greece, find all of his ex-soldiers, bring the band back together, and now we're going to have the fight for who's going to be the controller of Rome. Is it going to be Julius Caesar or is it going to be Pompey? All right. There's a battle for Pharsalus is kind of the big battle. We're not going to talk about it too much. Basically, Julius Caesar wins and Pompey flees. All right. I'm going to pause part one now because part two is even crazier than part one with the story. As you can see here, we get Egypt. We have the introduction of Cleopatra. We're going to have a love triangle. It definitely heats up here when Pompey flees to Egypt. So I'm going to pause now so I get an extra 15 minutes to reset here. All right.